David might be going through right now, say in this time period when he wrote this, right? But it's a different psalm. It's a different category of psalm, right? We talked about Psalm 22 just a few weeks ago, and one of the first words in the psalm says, David said, my God, he said, why hast thou forsaken me, right? Like, God, where are you when I need you? I need you right now. Are you not listening? Right? The other one was Psalm 51, one of my favorites, right? David begins, says, have mercy upon me, O God, right? ... He says, blot out my transgressions, right? Obviously, I think that was written not shortly, long after, right? He had fallen into adultery with Bathsheba, right? And he was brought to his attention very clearly. But those two psalms there are referred to as lament, songs of lament, which is a word I never use, right? But essentially, it's a psalm of anguish or fear or guilt, right? Those are the sort of things. But I tell you what, you don't have to go out and have an affair with Bathsheba in the Old Testament and get blessed by the word that David wrote, just in the own experiences you have in your own life. If you haven't, maybe you should use that going forward. But today's psalm is referred to as a psalm of confidence, okay? The lesson today is titled, Trust in God Alone. Of all the things in life that goes on, distracts us with regard to what maybe we should be doing or where we should be giving attention, right? Or asking for attention, right? There is a psalm of confidence. And in this psalm, we're going to see, and it's not that long either. We'll read it, and I'll do the best I can, get it all read, 12 verses, okay? Talk a little bit about that. But in the psalms of confidence, right, they're expressing, David expresses hope, right, in God, right, during these times, some time of distress. So I don't know, unless you know, I really don't know at what point in David's life that this psalm was written, okay? Don't forget, David had a very eventful life, very well documented. Every from being a shepherd to being the warrior that destroyed Goliath, right? To being the one who played the harp for King Saul, right? The one who became the second king of Israel, right? The father who is hunted down by his own son as king, right? David is going through a troubling lifetime, right? Yours may be just as bad, right? But these psalms, what they call these songs of confidence, right? They are a reflection, right, of one's David at this point in time when he's writing it. So don't listen to the way I'm reading it, but imagine David and the fact that David has written this psalm as what? What are psalms? What's another word we use for psalms? Songs, right? And even in the writing of the psalm, if you know much about writing songs, right? There's even this, we have in our song books, we have these things we call choruses. Everybody knows I'll Fly Away. At least they know the chorus, right? They may not know the verse, right? But even these psalms, there are what they call refrains, or sometimes repeating, sometimes of the same verse or words in a subsequent part of it. So when David's writing this, he's writing it, right, out of how he's feeling in his heart, with the expectation that someone will read this later, a congregation. Perhaps at that point in time, the Israelites, right? So he's saying, trust in God alone. Of all the things going on in this world, trust in Him alone. Don't look for alternative pathways for your protection or for your refuge. Does anybody here know what we mean by a refuge? What is a refuge? Place of safety. right? A place that only God can, in this case, only God can provide, right? Through him. So, God being the source of our protection. Do you believe that today? I mean, is this just a place to be on Sunday morning, or is he really, Todd, do you ever go to work and you just kind of open the door and you have to stop for a minute and you say, Jesus, please go first. Beat me there, right? Get there before I do. I just want this much. Just this much. Sometimes you'll bring home a steak, right? Amazing. But I truly believe that in this writing that David did in this week's lesson, that's the way he feels. His relationship with God is so close. Even though he is such a failure in himself, right? But he loves the Lord. Go ahead. Yeah. Mm. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. It's great. That's great feedback. Because, these songs, I'm not going to go down that path, but, these songs, a lot of these songs, I'm not going to say psalms, I'm going to say songs. These songs we listen to on the radio? I don't, but anymore. But that, you hear them and you remember them, and then sometimes you'll be out fishing, and whatever. Come to your mind. Well, those aren't necessarily gospel songs or songs you pull out of the scripture, but they should be, and they could be, right? So sometimes these words that God's put in the hearts that David's recorded, right, are literally meant to be read, not just one time, but multiple times. Why else? To remember, to meditate on, right? To draw closer to him. If you think you can get there, what's one way to get started, right? Prayer. And then, make these psalms part of your prayer, all right? I don't know. Is something wrong with that? Repeating the scripture, right? While you pray. God, only you know, right? We love him today, and I'm going to get going here. But this David is a serious camper when it comes to his trustworthiness, right, in God, in his power, his goodness, and all he's done. There's no doubt in my mind if we read the life of David, or maybe your own life, is just as wonderful. The things that God has done. I know he has in mind. Now, they may not be important to you, but they are to me because he is the ultimate power and strength in my life. It is not my wife, even though she went to this lesson last Monday. I'm going to have to take her out of that class because... Oh, she's here. I thought she was in the other room. Oh, gosh. Okay, let's go on. David, he's expressing, right, his attitudes about all these experiences, right? But he's speaking to an audience, too, right? If God put it here, it wasn't just for David, right? It was for his audience, his congregation, and for us, me and you, today. That's what I'm saying. If anybody thinks that this ain't good stuff, they're missing a whole lot, right? Okay, let's begin. I'm going to try to steer us through this if I can based on what the lesson gave us. And we'll go from there. Okay, verse 1, chapter 62. The title of my study book says, My Rock and My Salvation. My rock, meaning what? It's where I build my house, on the rock, right? My rock and my salvation. It says, truly, verse 1 says, truly, he says, my soul. Truly, my soul. He says, sincerely, put your letter I in there with quotes, right? This is David. He said, sincerely I, he said, waiteth upon God. Now, this wait that he's talking about, in David's eyes, this is a restful wait, right? You know, we've had scriptures, we've had Psalms where he said, God, where is it? Why hast thou forsaken me? I need you right now. David is confident right now in this week's lesson, right? He says, I'm waiting on you. He said, waiteth upon God. He said, from him cometh my salvation, right? Now, according to my lesson, now don't let me, I'm not playing, there's no game here we're playing. We know what salvation is to us Christians, right? We know what we're referring to with regard to salvation, with the fact that God sent his only Son, that whosoever believeth him should not perish but have everlasting life, right? This reference to salvation in this first verse is talking more so about a sort of a physical endurance, right? In other words, David was a guy where they were out to shoot him, cut him, kill his own son, right? If they caught him, he was nothing more than a dead man, right? He said, truly, he said, my soul waiteth upon God. He said, from him cometh my salvation. So David trusted in God, right? For everything he's about to sing about. Verse 2, he said, he only, right? He only is my rock and my salvation. He is my defense. Okay? Now, technically speaking, they used to use this word, strong tower, to stick in there. He is my defense. He says, I shall not be greatly moved. Now, what does that mean? To be moved. Shaken, right? Stand firm, right? I shall not be shaken, right? At least that's what they say. They told me in the study guide. Yeah. He said, only God, come on, only God, the rock, right, they're saying, can serve as the source of stability and rest, okay? With God as David's defense, right? He can confidently, and that's what he's doing here, confidently profess, right? He is not going to be moved, not to be swayed, right, by any outside influences. Listen, that's the purpose of this psalm today, okay? We know David's life, and we know that all that he's dealt with. This alone is David talking about his trust in God as his rock and his trust only in him, okay? He's grounded, he's protected by his power, and his feet will not slip. So anyway, note it has, the soul committed to God alone is stability, right? By God's saving work, his protective care. Verse 3 says, how long will you imagine, get this, how long will you imagine mischief against a man? You shall be slain, all of you, as a bowing wall shall be, and as a tottering fence. Okay, now what's a bowing wall? It's just a, what's that? It's not good. But I was trying to imagine this when I read it. Bowing, well, ultimately it's a I don't know, just, I'm trying to give you an example. A wall that's falling down?
I think of a foundation, a wall that's going in because it's.
That's good.
It's crushing your foundation.
There you go. Good. That's a good example. A bowing wall, right? Or a tottering fence. Well, just come out to my house. You want to see a tottering fence? They're everywhere. Nobody fixes them. Crazy, but true, right? But this is a contrast. What he's doing here is representing a contrast, right, between God, his stability, his faithfulness, his firmness from the beginning of time, from creation, and that of a bowing wall or a tottering fence.